We're live back at the Care Show in Birmingham at Care and Conversations, and it's sponsored this time by Cornerstone Care Solutions. So, Vic, nice to see you.
Lovely to see you too.
Do you just want to remind the audience who you are and what you do?
Of course, yes. So my name is Vic Rayner and I'm the Chief Exec of the National Care Forum, which is a membership body for not-for-profit care providers.
Perfect. So what's going on at the moment? What's the big issues hitting your desk or the good stuff?
Okay, well, there's lots of things going on in the policy world, so this is quite unusual for social care. We've spent many years saying government's not interested, government's not doing anything that focuses on social care, and now we've got a bit of a deluge going on. So I'm very interested to see what's happening with Louise Casey, so Baroness Casey, who's been charged with putting forward an independent commission into the future of social care. So that's no small task to do. We know that there's been lots of commissions and independent sort of reviews of social care in the past, but I think she is somebody who is absolutely adept at driving change through whichever government that there is. So that gives me some confidence that the solutions she'll come up with, which will have an appeal across a wide range of parties. She's had to work with different political parties in the past. She worked with the Conservatives, she's worked with the previous Labour government, she worked with the coalition. So she knows how to work in reform, frame reform in a way that's acceptable to a set of different political ambitions.
Yeah. And is there going to be a sort of an interim part of that report, or?
So there's two stages to it. So there's one stage that so she started her work now really in the autumn. So she had cross-party talks which were held on the 8th of September, and then she is now moving into a phase of engagement. So I think that we'll see some more deliberative kind of action. Her team have been busy all summer long, so we've certainly been delighted to have members from her team visit some of our National Care Forum members, and we've had them come along and talk at our CEO groups and that sort of thing. But now she's going to be more visible, I believe, in terms of holding engagement events going forward. So.
Yeah, because often in the past I think there's been kind of policies or reports that go out, and the feeling I get from the sector is like, why did no one talk to us about this?
I mean, I don't think there'll be any chance to say that. I mean, there's a lot of people in the sector, so there'll be some people she doesn't talk to, for sure. But what we've really got to do is to think about how we collectively use our voice to make sure the core messages that we need her to hear get across.
So they've got their ears open.
I think so, yeah.
Okay, that's good. That's a good start.
Eyes would be good too.
Eyes would probably be good as well, wouldn't it? Yeah. Maybe arms so they can write things down or something.
Don't need them anymore.
No,
We've
just
got AI.
We'll
just talk to the ether. I mean, I think it's no small task. I mean, let's not be shy about the fact that she's going to try and do that. Firstly, in a very, very difficult fiscal environment, and secondly, she's going to try and do that against a backdrop where all the things that make up social care or people's lives have been stripped away. So I've worked in the world of sport, care and sport for nearly 25 years, and actually trying to introduce something new or new ways of doing things now is going to be much harder than it would have been 15 years ago, because local government has had lots of funding taken away from it over the last 15 years. The impact of that is that the community services that might have been there, day services, lunch clubs, Meals on Wheels, those sort of things are not there in the same kind of way. So all you're left with in many ways is that really acute end of social care, or the acute end of hospital. And that's not where anybody would say they want social care to be. It's part of communities, it's part of lives, it's the things that enable people to live independently. And if the only time you encounter it is when you're at the really challenged end of maybe a significant health incident or a significant bereavement or a crisis, then that's not, social care can't do the job that it's best at, which is helping you remain independent, helping you remain connected to your community, helping you live the life that you want to live.
Yeah, there's all all that sort of prevention stuff, isn't it? All the ideas around that we can stop people having to go to hospital when they don't need to, because we've picked up on it months before there would have been a problem, because we're seeing someone regularly and taking them the things they need, and making other people in the community aware that this person needs additional support. But all of those things have kind of disappeared. So I guess maybe you've thought about this, maybe you haven't. If you're writing the report, what do you want to see in it? What are the sort of top 3 things that you really want to see at the top of the action lists for social care reform?
Well, so I think that, funnily enough, we have thought about that. We haven't got just 3, we've got 6 things that we really want to have as part of it. So we definitely want the government as a whole and policymakers to think about social care first. So social care is not just a kind of, appendage to health or justice or whatever it might be. It should be part of all those decisions. So if you've got people who are making decisions about skills, for example, or industrial strategies, or transport strategies, or thinking about how that we reframe the education system, they need to be thinking about what will social care need from this, right at the top of their agenda. I mean, in some parts of the country, 10 to 15% of the workforce, all the workforce, are people who are working in social care. And yet when we look at what's happening with local skills partnerships, for example, they're not investing in social care. No. They're thinking about, building or whatever else it might be. So we need those people to think about it. We need people who are building transport systems for the future to think, how do I ensure that this transport system keeps people connected into the things that are important to them so they can remain independent, and enables the workforce to get to the people that they need to, so that they're not reliant on cars and polluting the atmosphere. When we're thinking about education system, yes, we need to envisage all sorts of potential futures for children, but we also know we want 10 to 15% of all the children sitting in this classroom to work in social care at some point. We're not telling them anything about it. Why are kids reading books about how to be an astronaut when they should be reading books about how to be a fantastic carer? And all the ways, and of course you can make that really exciting because it's all the things about technology, and it's a social justice thing. It's fantastically exciting. So that would be number one. That's only number one.
Yeah, that's only number one.
How long have we got? You said we got extra time today.
We've got time. Let's go through. Let's do all 6.
So number 2 is about the workforce, and I think that's about obviously pay terms and conditions, and the government's looking at that with the Fair Pay Agreement. But it's also about recognising the skills and expertise of that workforce. It's about thinking strategically about how do we get from a position where we've got 110,000 vacancies every day to one where we've got, firstly, enough people to deliver care today, and secondly, another 470,000 or whatever skills for care are saying we need for care in 10 years' time. So, let's think of a workforce strategy that does that. We want to see absolutely not-for-profit care to be a significant part of a national care service. If we're going to build that, let's make sure that we've got those organisations who are built in communities, have always engaged in communities, are governed by local people generally, who've got an investment in making sure that this works for their community. Let's have that with those values and principles right at the heart of the development of a national care service.
What I might be putting you on the spot. What percentage of social care is delivered by charitable organisations?
So it's about 20% overall, which is not for profit. So that's charitable, and a very small proportion of local government. Delivery.
Very small proportion of local government.
Very small. It's about just about 2%.
I mean, what I was thought is interesting is that most local authorities spend 60% plus of their budget on social care, but invest 2% of their budget in, if anything, in provisions to save money on that side of things.
Yes. So I think that is a very difficult thing for governments nationally and locally to do, is to think about that prevention side of things. So there's a very old story about Tony Blair, which is that when he first came into power in 1997, people said to him then, and it's an old story. I'm not saying it's true or not. Tony Blair, if you're listening. It's that he was told at the time, if you could shift 2% of the funding from an acute budget into prevention, so acute health at that context, because he was all health, put more money, it's the NHS stupid, put more money into the health system. You put 2% into prevention year on year, you would completely transform the way in which we configure services. So all these shifts we're trying to do now, acute to community, that would have happened nearly 30 years ago when he first came into power. We didn't do that then because people like acute, people are familiar with the things that are in their community.
It's easy to understand in the way it's more visceral.
And local government is in exactly the same position. Yeah. But you're right. And what I've been hearing increasingly from leaders of councils is they're not just framing it in adult social care context. So they're now saying, if I look at adults and children's social care together, it's something like 78% of my budget. Yeah. And it only supports 3% of my local population. Yeah. So actually, I do think that we are perhaps in a climate where those small shifts even, so some of the brilliant technology that's here at the Care Show, if we can be really smart about demonstrating the ROI on those things, we could see, if it was 78% last year, but we could get it down to 75%. Well, in some parts of the country, that will free up millions and millions of pounds that could be reinvested in other services.
There's organisations I work with who support local authorities for assessments and things like that, and the money that the local authorities can save by adopting some clever technology is in the millions, in terms of over the period of a year. But it's just getting that message in there, getting that across.
And I think that, I won't get to all my 6, I know, but one of the other things is really looking at that conversation that the Archbishop of Canterbury previously started in his kind of focus on what social care should look like. He did a commission in that sense, which was about having a really different set of conversations about care. And that does mean that you communities as a whole have to say, if we want this to work for everybody, then the things that I might expect to happen because I have a care need might not happen in the same way as they did for my neighbour 5 years ago, or for my sister who lived in another local authority. Or we might just have to say that there's some give or take in the system, and people have to accept things are done differently. But these are hard things to shift. I used to work in homelessness, and there was a really interesting sort of set of narratives there, which were about how to do a really dramatic shift, which was a move to housing first. So instead of having hostels and then supported accommodation and then supported tenancies and then people moved on a kind of conveyor belt, the idea was you give people a house and then you wrap services around them, and that was really radical. And partly it was radical as an idea because it was valuing people who are homeless and saying you've got to wrap services, but mostly it was radical because it basically was saying all of these other systems and processes that you have aren't working for people. And that's the sort of radical conversation that you need to think about. Like, if we can't afford to do care like this, and maybe it's not really the thing that everybody wants or needs, then how do we encourage people to have the really radical conversation about how could we do it differently, at scale, still within legislative duties, etc. Yeah.
So that's 2. Is that 2
no,
points?
No, I got 4.
You got
I got 4 in there without
4
you
in
even
there, so
noticing.
Let's go back through. So it's workforce.
Yeah. Workforce. Think social care first in policy terms. Having a different narrative which has care in the kind of central to that, and a kind of caring conversations thing. Not-for-profit care. Industrial, economic, recognising the economic value of social care, and then the mystery one, which will come back to me.
Yeah, we'll come
shortly.
back to it in a minute.
Yeah.
Really interesting analogy. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they were interviewing someone who was designed a machine which lays bricks. And one of the questions they asked him was, "Isn't this going to take jobs from people?" And he said, "Well, there's nowhere near enough people who can lay bricks and who want to lay bricks. And I think there's that same thing within social care where there's not enough people, and actually some of the technology can be used to supplement care, make a single carer a stronger, more powerful, person that can do more, but not because we want to replace them, but because there's not enough people to do what they need, and actually it sort of then enhances and makes it more human.
And technology adoption has to be done through a lens of rights, has to be done with a kind of ethical perspective attached to it. So there's all those things that have to be central to that thinking. But you're absolutely right. We've got 110,000 vacancies. I mean, that's not 110,000 robots necessarily, but there are ways that we can deliver care in a different way, and we're seeing that at scale. In essence, in local authority commissioning, because they are commissioning with technology before people. We're not properly even having that debate and sort of acknowledging that that's happening at scale, but it absolutely is.
It strikes me as well. There's a lot of sort of care that happens not because it needs to happen, but because someone's checking. There's a sort of check happening to make sure that nothing's gone wrong, whereas actually that check might not need to happen if you use the technology in the right place.
I mean, the great examples are the sort of sensors, aren't they? So, actually, can we envisage a different relationship with people where, we use sensors in a way to either allow people to request support if they need it, so in a more of a call-off type basis, or, as you say, we don't sort of have to look at, I mean, there's, again, some brilliant examples here, aren't there, around this Care Show, where people are using sensors to determine sleep patterns rather than go in to see people. There's people who are using medication robots, for example, which will dispense medication at the right time, so you don't need to have somebody come and bring you your medication. As long as you've got capacity and physical ability to pick it out of the robot, then that helps do that. You've got technology that enables you to engage with people remotely more effective. So there's loads and loads of that sort of stuff that's there. What we haven't got is taking it at scale. And you suggested I might have some things I wanted to talk about in the context of things we're doing, and one of those would be is some work we're doing in Liverpool.
Yeah.
So we're working with Liverpool University to develop a test bed with our members in the Liverpool City region. So we've got 15 members who deliver all different types of services: residential care, nursing care, day services, supported living, extra care, everything that you can picture with working age adults, older people. And we're going to be testing new technology with those members and doing that across a range of different organisations to try and encourage people to see the ability to take on that technology much more quickly. Yeah. Because it's a nightmare, I'm sure, if you're a supplier in this sector, trying to knock on the door of, well, you can knock on the door of a couple of big organisations, get through the door and have some success, but then you've got to go out to 25, 30 more organisations to get the same sort of scale as one, and it's very different.
Something that happens quite a bit is interesting is like repiloting.
Yeah.
Is like a pilot's done by X local authority under X conditions, and then you go to a different local authority and then they pilot again.
Yeah.
Because they're testing the technology and they get the money for the pilot, but then actually a lot of the time there's no plan post the pilot to install the. So you install it for 6 months, 8 months, 12 months, it works, and then the money was never there to actually run the system, or then you go to another local authority and they don't take the pilot as just, and there's a lot of that happens in the sector, I see, where companies sort of piloting, repiloting, so it's sort of, ultimately it's a bit of a waste of money, right? Maybe there's some kind of way maybe that system will allow to say, well, these are the technology items.
Yeah, these people have tried it, they're prepared to share their experience, their data, their whatever. So I think that might be one way to do it. I mean, the other area where really there would be really strong incremental saving would be in recruitment and retention. So, we've still got a turnover of 24.5% or something on average, and of course that's an average where we know that in the first 6 months can be up to 50-60% turnover.
Yeah.
In some certain settings it's more. So if being able to tackle some of that would release huge amounts of money back into the sector. And think about the costs of training and recruitment, the experience of people receiving care and support who are seeing a sort of revolving door of people, I don't want to get to know so-and-so because they might not be here 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
The use of agency, all of that sort of stuff. So thinking about how the workforce feels about technology. So that's another important part of this test bed, is rather than just sort of saying, let's pilot the technology, let's make sure that the workforce know about the technology, they're skilled, so we've got a skills program attached to it, so they know what they're doing, they're prepared for it, they're engaged in it from that point of view.
Yeah.
So I think those things are really important.
Yeah, I think we've discussed today induction and things like that, and how important that is, and how quite a lot of the time, in adult social care or in elderly care homes, that someone's employed and just chucked straight in, and that's it. There's no sort of real process for them to go through. Whenever someone comes to work new for my company, I sort of don't really let them do any work for a week, because there's lots of things to read and get connected and all these other bits. Where I think in social care, often just because they're so short-staffed that they chuck people in too quickly.
Well,
and then,
I would say we also. It's interesting because we also do that to people.
Yeah.
At some level. So if you go and live in a residential care setting, sometimes we might expect you on day one to go and eat in a dining room.
Yeah.
When perhaps you've eaten on your own for the last 10, 15 years of your life.
Yeah.
Or just with one person, and that one person's now died. So you've got all of that grief, and suddenly you're in a concrete. So I think perhaps there's and of course that's not everywhere, and I'm sure some people listening will be saying, I don't do anything like that, I'm brilliant, and equally I don't chuck staff in at the deep end.
Yeah.
But there's a sort of I think there's something. I think we need to think more about how all of that. We're all transitioning in a sense to being in a completely different environment, and you're right. So you need some time to sit back and experience that, and from both the perspective of somebody receiving care and support and the perspective of the workforce, and maybe they could do it together.
Yeah.
I'm new too, but why don't you buddy up those people and get them to talk to each other and talk about their experience, who's that? I don't know, I'll go and find out, and you can see actually you could begin to develop it as more of a kind of relationship and a partnership. And we worked with some colleagues in Canada who I went to see some training and learning environments that they did for 16-year-olds, 16 to 18-year-olds who were interested in health and care, and that training environment was co-located in a care home. So all of the training that they were doing was in the care home. They had a teaching space there, but when they wanted to learn about lifting and handling, it was people from the care home who came down and told them how they liked to be lifted. Okay. It was people from the care home who were their mentors and supporters. It was people from the care home who kind of gave them feedback on the way they delivered their kind of. So, and at the end of that, even though it was a health and care combined course, people didn't want to work in health, they wanted to work in care because they could see this was delivering change each and every day, and they could build relationships with people. I mean, that's such a privilege, that you can build long-term relationships with people in working age adults services and older people services. So.
Yeah, there's a lot of brilliant things about the sector that we struggle to get across, don't we? We covered off all 6. You think that's covered? I mean, we've talked a lot. We covered them off. I think. I assume they're probably on. If you published them on the website,
on the National Care Forum website.
Yeah, go and have a look and see and have a look at those bits. Good to hear that you're able to be in a way part of the conversation with the policy people who are making the decisions.
Yes.
That's a positive.
Well, and I think what we always try and do is bring our members into that as well, because they're the people who are showcasing some of the brilliant work that they do, and they're very honest about the challenges they face as well as the things that they are trying to do really differently. So it's a privilege to work with them in that way.
Perfect. So I've got one final question for you.
Yes.
It's a big one.
It's a killer question.
It's a killer question, yeah. If you were a biscuit,
yes,
what type of biscuit would you be?
Well, that's a very pointed question because I've discovered. Well, I'm trying to live a gluten-free life.
Okay, now we've had
the gluten-free people out there will recognise that it's not always easy to find yourself a nice gluten-free brisket. But so I would probably go for being a bit of a cheese cracker.
Cheese cracker, okay. So a cracker, not a biscuit, but I'll let you have it. You know, it's
you say biscuit, I say cracker.
Yeah, you can get a gluten-free digestive, probably, maybe.
You can. Would you want to eat it?
Yeah,
that's the question.
That's the question. Yeah, we've got in my little coffee shop, we've got a couple of nice gluten-free options. They're little
gluten-free cake. You'll be talking a nice polenta cake.
Yeah.
That would be nice. Orange drizzle polenta cake. That would win me over.
And to be fair, it's the quality of gluten-free food is ever increasing. I think options are better. The taste, the quality is better. I think,
we could do a survey right here, right now.
Yeah, gluten-free options all the way. Yeah. Well, thanks very much for joining me.
Thank you very much.
It's been nice to speak to you.
Lovely to see you.
Thank you.
Take care.
We'll be back shortly with our next guest.